Okay, I call to order the August 4th, 2020 meeting of the City of West Sacramento Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission. Pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20, members of the West Sacramento Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission and staff are participating in this meeting today via teleconference. To reduce the spread of COVID-19, Commission members and members of the public are asked to watch the meeting via telecast on Wave Cable Channel 20 and to have submitted comments in writing by 5 o'clock yesterday. So the public has had ample time to submit questions for public comment. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start the General Administration Function Part 1. Presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda with the jurisdiction of the Commission. The Commission is prohibited by law by discussing any issues not on the agenda brought at this time.
Chair Sandoval, we do need to do roll call, so I will go ahead and do roll call whenever you're ready.
Okay, let's do roll call.
Thank you. Chair Sandoval?
Present.
Vice Chair Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Ahmad?
Present.
Commissioner Eckler?
Here.
Commissioner Hargrove?
Present.
Commissioner Jan?
Here.
And Commissioner Price?
Here.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum.
Thank you for that, Madam Secretary. And also, so now going to General Administration Function Part 1, 1A, were there any questions submitted?
We did have two public comments submitted, one from Charlotte Dorsey and one from Richard Novoa regarding item number 4 on tonight's agenda. These comments have been forwarded to you all, the commissioners, via email before the meeting. They will also be posted on our website after the meeting. And the staff member presenting on item 4 will address the comments during her presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, going on with General Administration Function, item 1B, Commissioner Communications. Commissioners, anything to communicate with other commissioners?
I can go. But,
please do.
Thank you. I hope everybody's doing well and nobody comes to the door, so my dog will shut up. Sorry about that. I have been involved recently in a communication through Nextdoor where someone requested some baby clothes and other items for a new mom who couldn't afford her needs. And the outpouring of support and offers was incredible. And so I've kind of stayed connected with the person that initiated that to talk about what it would look like or what it might be to have an informal grouping of people that could respond in similar ways. I know this happens all the time. It's probably happened to all of you around various topics, whether it's equipment for children to participate in sports or school supplies, et cetera. But I'm really interested in beginning to explore some opportunities to maybe formalize it a little bit more and let people know that that capacity exists within our city. And I also wanted to say that I started a Facebook group that is on Facebook. It's called Resilient, Sustainable, Compassionate Communities, and it's intended to be a platform for folks to communicate with each other about things like if they have extra food from their gardens. And I've tried to connect with other organizations in our city that also are involved with activities like that, like Crop Swap. And then I've also created a website of resources on sustainability, resilience, and climate change that's intended to, again, provide resources that people can look into for various reasons And so I hope people will check it out. And if you're interested, contact me directly and I'll put more information out there for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners would like to share? Commissioner Eckler? Go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, a couple things here I just want to go and say is that, certainly with, the COVID, impacting all of us in unique ways, there's been also creative ways just to going out and see what else we're doing around here. And the other day I went through and took just a nice little walk because it's in my neighborhood over by Memorial Park, and proud to say that, that's looking fabulous over there. So hats off to Tracy and Paul and the team of what you've done out there. And I know it's only continuing to get better. So just want to, really give you guys kudos for that. It's something to truly be proud of. And then the second piece, something that Commissioner Hargrove actually even shared on his Facebook page, and me being an avid boater and a captain, and to go and see our new Washington area boat docks coming in from a recreation sense. That's another huge boon from the unsafe docks that were there years ago and just continue to be a blight. Really excited to see where we're going with that. So that is all.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Johns, did I see your hand go up?
Sure. I was just gonna also praise all of the parks and staff who worked pretty hard to get Memorial Park going. I think as a lot of people know, I was heavily involved in that from a Little League standpoint. I'm a parent, I have a player who plays in there, and it was a lot of work from everybody involved, but it mostly, I think, not only does it allow everybody to access the fields now, which I think is a really fantastic thing and unique thing. You don't see very many Little League parks that have the facilities that Memorial Park has now. And I think that's really a blessing for everybody in the community to be able to access this park. But it also showed a lot of what could be accomplished when everybody is headed toward the same goal, who's able to kind of work together and come up with some really brilliant ways to overcome some of the challenges that we face, not only financially, but also in the facilities themselves, and how we can get all of the things accessible and keep what the community wanted. I think it's a really great achievement, and it speaks volumes to everyone that was involved. So personally, I'm proud of it, but I'm also, as a resident of West Sacramento and a father of a baseball player, I think it's just something that's really terrific. And for anybody who's listening, if you hadn't had a chance to go by Memorial Park, I highly recommend it, because it's something that's very unique. If you play baseball or have played baseball and you travel around to other parks, other communities, I don't think you'll find anything like Memorial Park, and that's something special. So I just want to thank everybody involved, thank the City Council and everybody who had a effort in getting this done. It's a really great achievement. It took a couple of years from start to finish, but it's finally done. And the timing was a little unfortunate because we didn't get a chance to use it, but that's nobody's fault. It was also a little bit of a silver lining because there was some construction delays. So it actually gives the Little League a chance to, I think, get everything that they want squared away inside the building. And so it gives them a little bit of breathing room instead of trying to scramble to get it all done. So just as most things in life, it'll all work out in the end. But I think they're definitely looking forward to next season and being able to use this new facility. It's really fantastic.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Johns. Any other commissioner would like to share? Commissioner Ahmad?
Thank you, Danny. Hope you can all hear me. I'm wearing these funny headphones. So a few months ago, and because of COVID, I honestly don't remember the timeline, but I had a grad student from an ecology grad student from Davis reach out to me regarding a project that he wanted to kind of ran into West Sacramento called the Freach, which is a kind of a that piggybacks off of the little free library, which we have, I think, quite a few of now all over West Sac. And I did reach out to Katie, who helped connect me to Sam Cooney, because the idea was to put this fridge, which, just to give you what it is, it's essentially a public refrigerator that has food for residents to share. And it's ideally supposed to go in an area where there's a food insecurity. Anyway, so there was some communication kind of like lapses between myself and the folks at Davis, but we're back on track, and I'm hoping to reach out to Sam and kind of get the ball rolling again. But the idea was for probably if we could have it somewhere in a park, again, where there's food insecurity in West Sacramento. And the reason they wanted to put it in a park was that it's not anyone's like home property, so it's like anyone can just share it. But there's already exists in the city of Davis, and I'm excited about possibly working on this and moving it into West Sac. And given the we're in, I know that it's kind of weird to be communal, but I think this is a way for people to come together in a safe and healthy way, which offers people a chance to get food stuff, which again, with high employment rates we're experiencing right now, I think would be a good thing. So if anyone's interested in working on it with me, I encourage you to reach out. But I'm excited. Again, I think it'd be a good use of our parks, and I'm excited to connect this project to West Sacramento.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Any other commissioners would like to add? And I just would like quickly just to commend all the staff at the Parks and Recreation Department for the city of West Sacramento for keeping up our parks during this COVID pandemic time we're all going through, to pretty much keeping us happy and sane in our communities and giving us that opportunity to use the parks. All right, with that, we will continue. The next part is the consent agenda. Item number 2, consideration for approval of the minutes for the February 4th, 2020 regular meeting. Would somebody like to propose a motion?
A motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
The Commission Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. And to be clear, that was motioned by Commissioner Eckler and seconded by Ahmad. Is that correct?
Yes,
correct.
Thank you. Vice Chair Reed, I'm sorry, go ahead and give a yes or no for your vote to approve the minutes for February 4th. Vice Chair Reed.
Aye.
And Commissioner Hargrove.
Aye.
Commissioner Jans.
Aye.
Commissioner Price. Is that an aye, Commissioner Price?
Sorry, didn't pick it up. Aye.
And Chair Sandoval.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we're going to continue on to our regular agenda. First up, we have a workshop presentation on the draft Bees Lakes Habitat Restoration Plan and consideration of the design plans. Mr. Dirksen, take it away. Unmute yourself, Mr. Dirksen. See if I can help you. Okay.
I think we can hear you, Paul.
Okay, I'm working on it.
No, you're on.
Got you.
Do you see that now?
Yes.
Okay. How we doing?
Great.
All right. So before I begin tonight's presentation, I want to apologize for the mix-up of the staff reports and the attachments. I'm culpable. I sent the wrong staff report to Katie, and she processed it and put it out for all of you to read. And hopefully you got an updated one yesterday, last night, or we're able to look at that today. Also on the call this evening is Doug Brown for some support if necessary, if you have any questions that are more detailed than my presentation. And with that, I'm going to move forward. So tonight I'm going to give a little bit of background into how we got to the preferred alternative. And then I'm going to talk about how that influenced the draft habitat restoration plan and design. And I will show you elements of each of those, the plan and the design. So first off, you may recall that alternative one was a minimal grading concept design. It intended to partially fill the ponds with some small graded fill material, which would result in increased riparian and wetland and an open water interface. The ponds are relatively deep, and so adding the fill material would help with habitats, provide a different range of surface elevations for different types of emergent marsh, seasonal wetlands, and riparian habitats. And as we discussed previously, all the alternatives that I'm going to share with you this evening have similar aspects to them, similar elements to improve the habitat within the Bees Lake process. So it includes the removal of invasive plants, planting of native riparian woodlands and disturbed area, and the removal of debris and trash. You may recall that the second connection was going to connect directly with the river. There was a culvert that was going to tie into the large water area. We were going to improve the stream between the two ponds so that they would connect in the interior of the Bees Lake parcel. And then we would see if whether or not this would even improve habitat value for fish. So there would be closed baffles to try to encourage certain fishes and discourage others. Our third alternative was not completely focused necessarily on the main area we know of Bees Lake, but rather along the shoreline. And this was a riverside terrace design that would create an open channel specifically for fish habitat. It's anticipated from studies that because of the elevation being placed at 7 to 11 feet, that the floodplain would inundate 2 out of every 3 years, therefore allowing for the fish to be able to take advantage of that new feature. So in going through the tape and listening to the commissioners, there was a lot of interest in this alternative as an add-on alternative in the future. But what really kind of led us to our final discussion about an alternative design was this conceptual recreational features. And here we're able to highlight the shared pedestrian and equestrian trail, potential for picnic areas. Again, this was conceptual at the time. Bicycles, ADA ramp accessibility, and then a couple of boardwalks. So I'm going to walk you through the plan, how this conceptual design led, and your comments, as well as the comments from the stakeholders, led us to the restoration plan, the draft habitat restoration plan and design. So after a thoughtful discussion in February, this commission agreed with staff and the stakeholder recommendation to select alternative one with the understanding that the waterside bench could be developed in the future. Choosing alternative one as the preferred alternative, like I said, guided the habitat restoration plan and
along with the background report, provides the framework for our CEQA analysis. So the restoration plan has some straightforward objectives to evaluate opportunities to restore the habitat. We're going to explore approaches to improve water quality, which we'll be talking about. We'll be identifying opportunities to better manage public access, and then we'll talk about public health and safety. So one of the first tasks in the proposed habitat restoration plan is the removal of invasive species. There's a wide variety of invasive species that growing in Bees Lake. They range from creepy and climbing blackberries to ivies, reeds, grasses, and then shorter canopy trees. The draft plan recommends invasive plant removal be conducted over 2 seasons. That would be 2 separate years. The first season would consist of targeted removal by hand or herbicide application. Invasive trees that don't add to the habitat value or restoration goals would be cut down and removed from the property. Year 2 would evaluate the effectiveness from the first season and take additional restoration actions to improve habitat. Areas that were effectively cleared would be reseeded with native grasses and plants. In keeping with the first objective of the draft restoration plan, the proposed plan also includes areas for new mixed riparian woodland growth along the base of Chicory Loop at both the northern and the southeastern areas of the site. This would also add new tree stock to an aging riparian forest and may be useful for mitigation for project impacts. Just this June, so just a couple months ago, one of our design team consultants took water and soil samples from both water bodies and took them to a lab for a broad chemical analysis. There were a number of constituents identified in each of the lakes. Both have elevated amounts of aluminum, manganese, iron, and diesel rain organics. The smaller water body is more impacted by chemicals, including arsenic and a host of metals that were identified through the water samples. The consultants who conducted this study and analyzed the results offers 2 courses of action. One is to focus on the iron and diesel range organics for further investigation. And the second would be to have an environmental consultant conduct a preliminary endangerment assessment. The purpose of the preliminary endangerment assessment is to look at the future use of the project and determine what constituents should be remediated and an understanding of the risk for anything that remains. So just something to consider. Just trying to give you as close of an update as I can to what's going on with the restoration project. So in terms of water quality, the preferred alternative contemplates some treatment of these lakes, including grading, water and/or soil removal, and edge stabilization. The draft habitat restoration plan contemplates draining the ponds, removing trash and debris, and slope stabilization. Once the ponds are refilled, the design team discussed and recommended installing floating garden islands that could be anchored around the lake and planted with water-based plants that could improve air quality. This next slide gives you a conceptual idea about what the planting islands look like, or the floating islands look like. And then in the right-hand side of your screen, you can actually see a mature growth vegetated floating island. So we believe that these are some potential positive solutions to deal with the water quality in the future of these lakes. So in terms of recreation, the restoration plan and design proposes a number of passive features to maintain the ecological values of the property and to better manage access and use. So the design sheet you're seeing shows both the common entries where Chicory Loop connects to the levee road. Both would be graded to provide a more gradual slope, thereby accommodating pedestrians. And in the downriver entrance, there's even a conceptual idea for putting in parking along that loop. The landside bench would be graded and reinforced as necessary to accommodate a shared pedestrian and equestrian path. An optional picnic area and parking is contemplated near the downstream entrance, and restrooms are contemplated at the upstream entrance. So the plan also contemplates improved access to the interior areas of Bees Lakes through the improvement of pathways and boardwalks. This plan sheet shows a boardwalk between existing trails in Bees Lakes, about 180 foot long, that would be elevated to even out the trail grade and make it much more accessible. And then further upstream, there's another pathway that would also be connected with a boardwalk. This is known as Trail 2 in the design plans. It's generally in the middle of the property. It has a smaller boardwalk with very little elevation change. And then the last feature that I'd like to specifically draw your attention to is the lookouts or the viewing platform. So based on feedback we received from the stakeholders and from this commission, we developed this platform to look out over the large water bodies. It's partially constructed to line up with the landside berm to connect with and the shared walking path. And then it cantilevers out towards the water feature. It's a circular shaped viewing platform, 30 feet in diameter, that would accommodate visitors or features, signage, particular birds of interest, and other things for visitors. So half of the viewing platform would be constructed of concrete, and the other half would be made of metal grades that could be removed in case of high flood events or for some other reason that we wanted to limit access to the viewing platform. As you can also see, the design contemplates a 42-inch high railings along the perimeter of the lookouts and benches toward the back side of the platform for people to sit. So another feature that we haven't really talked about, but something that has to be brought up, is the fact that if we're going to do the habitat restoration plan, we should probably also have an operation and management plan. The operation and management plan would address annual removal of debris, evaluation of invasive species and trees, monitoring of the success of new plantings, water quality monitoring, and then obviously we'd want to make sure that the access maintenance to encourage visitors to use the site amenities and to reduce the occurrence of unwanted behavior. So the whole intention here is to try to activate the site and encourage people to show up and ensure that we're not having other elements of the invading the community or invading Bees Lake that are unwanted. So that's what I wanted to present for the habitat restoration plan and the design. Some of our next steps would be to take the workshop to the city council, complete the CEQA documentation, seek and apply for implementation funding, as well as consider hiring an environmental consultant to conduct the preliminary engagement assessment. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Reed?
Thank you. A couple of questions, and I'm sorry if you answered this one in the presentation. In terms of the contaminants in the ponds, have you identified whether those are all natural or whether there are other sources of contamination that potentially need to be controlled? That's question number one. And I have two more questions. I'll let you answer that one first.
So based on the host of contaminants, I would say not all of them are naturally occurring. So there are some various things that are in there that don't make a whole lot of sense for the area, but they could be related to long-term pesticide use. Unclear at this time.
So would the management plan then include some way to mitigate the sources?
Well, we would have to consult with somebody else, but our thought is that it probably is worthwhile to excavate out some of the bottom of the lakes, remove the water as we can, pump out as much water as we can, filter the water, and then take it to some sort of a appropriate contamination disposal site. Super. I love the plant islands. I think they're fabulous. I'm wondering if along the trails and the boardwalks that you're preparing, in addition to the landing site that you for viewing, if there are going to be educational plaques along the way of trails or boardwalks or unique features of the whole site. Yeah, the thought would be that there would be wayfaring signs as well as instructional signage for people to know what they're looking at, or perhaps be able to identify some unique aspects of these lakes. Super. And my last question is, I'm not that familiar with how to what elements and amenities all the ADA requirements apply, but I'm wondering on the boardwalks and trails whether there's accommodations for wheelchair and other disability access. And I don't know whether that's required wholesale or partially, and what are the plans for that? So I don't have a complete answer here, but I will tell you that the main shared trail is designed to be ADA accessible, both from the upstream and the downstream entrance. The boardwalks, so one of them is elevated, not insignificantly, so 9 to 11 feet. And so it may not be as suitable. And we are going to be in some more dense forestry, but other than that, the grades I think would be appropriate for passing for ADA accessibility. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Johns, then Commissioner Hargrove.
Thanks. I think Commissioner Reed addressed this already, so I appreciate your patience if I'm kind of going over it again. I just wanted to confirm the environmental consultant is something that you're going to be presenting to council for approval to look like in this last slide here. I just wanted to confirm that that consultant would determine the source of the contaminants and determine whether or not those floating islands can sustain themselves inside the lakes. I'm assuming that's all part of this consultant presence in the project.
Right. So I've worked on about 4 different brownfield sites in the city. I've closed 3 of them. And more important, so if you will, more important than source is how do we remediate? How do we get to a place where the lakes are going to be functioning better? So we would be working with the environmental consultant to identify what constituents would be able to go to what receiving site, because not all receiving sites are the same, especially in California. So some of our most hazardous materials are down in Cottonwood, California, for instance. It's quite a haul from here, but I've had to use it before because of the degree of contamination at a site. So that's why I look to the environmental consultant to kind of talk about, or we would look to them for their expertise in which constituents need to be remediated, and then how would we go about doing that?
And the source, right? So it's not just something that's leaching from the ground that'll just represent itself later.
Again, because of the nature of the constituents that we found, like these hard metals, I don't think it's anything that's naturally occurring. I think it's something that happened either through dumping or a long series of dumping, or there's something down there that's degrading. But it's hard to tell without doing a little bit more investigation.
Yeah, fair enough. And then the second question was the vegetation management plan. That would include both the Bees Lake area and the, the toe side of the levee where you'd have the outlooks and whatnot. And then I imagine, or I'm asking, would this also include like a long-term plan, like an annual, going forward, this is how much it would cost to maintain and cut back the invasive species and keep them away, and et cetera?
So the answer to the second question is yes. And then the answer to the first question is that I think the plan would need to be scalable. So we may, as we've talked about doing incremental work, the same thing may also be true where we would try to tackle one part of the property and see how well it succeeds before we move on to another part of the property. So just an example about how we would try to make that a scalable plan to deal with improving the habitat values.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hargrove?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Paul, thanks for coming to this again and doing this presentation. It's been, really great watching this thing evolve. As I've said before, I've spent my whole life tromping around in this area, and I really like that something's going to be done to clean it up a little bit. There's a lot of trash and stuff in there, and something's going to be done to preserve it as a kind of a natural riparian park in the area. But a couple questions, some are coming. I ask them every time. I know that you've mentioned the trails are both for pedestrians and equine. So I just want to say that that's great. I know that there's some issues with working to make sure that the horses can get in there, but it sounds like that's something you're positive on, and it sounds like something that can be worked out to make sure that horses can access the area.
That's right. We're still working, we're still working on access. Aaron Rivas and I have talked about a different location for that may be suitable for parking horse trailers that would have access at the base of the levee. So we're doing some exploration as into the requests.
That is great. Thank you very much. I know it's much more complicated than you want to get into now, but really appreciate that you guys continue to have that at the forefront and work on it. Another thing is that the report is quite long. It's fascinating though, so I hope that folks that kind of just want to learn about the natural habitat around here, what animals are around here, what flora and fauna are around here. The report is fantastic. So if you have a moment to go through 167 very detailed pages, you will learn a lot if you read this report. So I appreciate it from that standpoint. But the one issue that I did get a question on is the cultural resources and if there was any issues and consultation with the Native American tribes. Now I know that this area is within the project area of the Southport setback levy, and I assume that it was done under that CEQA process and wouldn't be specific to this one. Do you have an answer on that?
Yes, and
It's kind of the Southport EIP,
so,
and I don't know what an EIP is, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so I'm going to start the answer, and then if Doug needs to chime in, he can. So Doug is the one working on the environmental documents. He's consulted already with our planning department in terms of reaching out to the tribes. So we intend on reaching out to the tribes, and he may already have. We're trying to do our CEQA consultation. We're trying to do that consultation as soon as possible. They have a window to respond. We did consult with them. The flood program consulted with the tribes for the Southport, and EIP is early implementation project. So the Southport EIP is the early implementation project. We do believe that there are cultural significance in these lakes, and so we will be working cooperatively with the tribes as we go through our permitting process.
Okay, so basically you're saying there is a robust process to come, that it wasn't just included in the project area for the setback levy, and stay tuned.
I'll just be real frank. What I envision is that if we touch the lakes, if we get the permits to touch the water bodies and remove water and excavate soils, I would expect the tribes to be present. I would expect them to want to be there and see if we find anything that of significance to them. So that would be the first and foremost. The removal of invasive species would probably be less impactful and less worrisome to them, but certainly removal of any dirt is something that's going to be in there, something that they're going to want to be part of, and we should embrace that.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that question. And I know when you say, let me be frank, what you really mean is, let me speak simply, and I appreciate that because I need it. In terms of the stuff that's going up for education and things like that, I know that this is to come and not something to discuss now, and probably something that Parks will do more of, but would love to see just a little a history of the area, not just the natural history, but some of the history, but specifically why Bees Lake was created. Last time we asked around, nobody had the actual answer as to how or why Bees Lake was created, aside from generally there was a levee breach and there's weird piping to the river, but there's never been kind of a clear explanation of that. And I think it's a really interesting, unique area. We're surrounded by levees, but we have this one little area that has some sort of connection to the river, and is, I think it's a culturally, historically significant place to recent history of this city too. So I'd love to see that happen. And then finally, anytime this goes up, there's a couple folks that just don't like this, think that this is a fig leaf, that the Southport is being developed, and, just wish that the city would do something to stop developing the city. So I want to move that forward. That is something that is expressed quite often. I know that there are, significant answers to that. But I would feel remiss if, we come to this meeting trying to represent what we've heard from the community, and to not say, I don't think there's anything negative specific to this project, but the fact that Southport is being built out and is being urbanized is quite a sore point with some folks in the community. So again, thank you. I appreciate it. This is one of the more interesting projects that's happening, I think. This is the intersection between natural habitat, restoring stuff, and creating an area for people and horses and dogs to go walk around and have fun and enjoy nature. And along with the other about 150 acres of riparian habitat that's being created with the setback levees, and this is an amazing project that we should be shouting from the rooftops. This is very unique. West Sac is really doing something here that hasn't been done in this area. So thank you for your work.
I appreciate that, and I agree with you. It's I would really like to see us get the right funding streams to be able to initiate a lot of these different elements, because I think you're right. I think it's a really unique piece of property and a really strong community asset.
Since you did mention funding streams, I guess we should ask this too. At this point, it doesn't look like there's any request for general funds for this, and that you are doing your best to pull down grants outside of that process. Do you think that's realistic?
Well, we've submitted one funding proposal that they're asking us to put together a full application, so who knows?
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Dirksen, commissioners? We have Suzanne Reed.
Sorry to come back, but Commissioner Hargrave mentioned the horses, so I have to comment. By the map that I saw briefly, am I correct in seeing that the horse trail is beside the road?
That's right. It would be a shared pedestrian and equine path.
But it's also the road that the vehicles travel in is next to it. That trail.
Yeah, but it's between 12 and 20 feet at a lower elevation than the road.
Oh, okay, super. Because I was just going to mention that I know you have the Trails Association working with you, which is great. But people that travel on the road in cars are notoriously rude to horses sometimes. I attribute it to ignorance more than malice. But the fencing between the road and the trail, to the extent that it ever comes close, needs to be regarded with respect to its safety if you hit it. I ride a spooky horse. He spooks away from whatever scared him. So that's just my comment on horse safety and public safety. But thank you. I'm very impressed, and I love that the tribes are also going to be involved and engaged, and hopefully maybe share some of their history with the area that we can share on the educational plaques as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Ahmad, and then Commissioner Price.
Okay, thank you. I just have a quick question about the lookout areas. I'm just trying to get a sense of the railing, what the gap would be between the rails, because it looks like there's like three kind of like the railings have three parts, and I just wanted to. I'm looking at the on my end, and I maybe I'm not looking in the right section. It has like 2x4, 4x4 posts. So I wanted to get a sense of what the what the gaps were going to be like.
My recollection was there's kind of a top, and then there are slats that go down that are connected by posts. But the idea was to try to keep people from being able to stick their feet through them, I think is what it was. I'm pretty sure you're just seeing some small gaps in this rail exhibit.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. I wanted to kind of get a visual for it. So thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Price.
Well, it looks like in all the plans that we see in this version of it, it has the Pirate BMX Park removed. Is that what the plan is?
Well, I don't know if I have a really good answer for this. I don't think we're aggressively removing the park. We have spoken with risk management, and you can imagine what their response was. So at this time, it's not something that we're actively working on one way or another, removing or adding on to.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Eckler.
I don't have a whole lot to add because a lot of the other commissioners have really addressed a lot of other questions I have. I want to go and say I wanted to really commend you on a great report, Paul, great presentation. The sensitivity to the Native American heritage in the area, just having seen some of the results of excavation and other things in the area there and the sensitivity for, taking that into consideration. But really, really excited to be part of this project, and hats off to you.
Thank you very much. Chairman Sandoval, I think Tracy may want to conclude with something before we move on to the next agenda item.
Tracy?
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Paul, for all of your work on this. Paul's kind of on loan to the Parks and Recreation Department from the Flood Division for this effort. He's got so much expertise in this area, so we really appreciate him working with us to make this exciting project happen. And to date, all of this work has been almost 100% funded with grant funding. So when some questions came up about how we're going to fund this moving forward, we imagine that the bulk of the funding would be grant funding. And this site is so competitive because of the uniqueness of it. And most of the grant funding that we're exploring is really related to habitat restoration and creating unique recreation opportunities through habitat restoration. So hopefully, this will become a very competitive project and we'll continue to move forward implementing improvements. In terms of the improvements, I did want to just share with you that one of the main reasons why we were successful in securing grant funding for this effort and had assistance with the Delta Conservancy staff in shepherding this through the process. And some of these grant programs are fairly difficult to navigate through. They've got a lot of requirements, specific processes, and we had the benefit of working with a Delta Conservancy staff person, Brian Keegan, who really fell in love with this project and got behind it and helped us. And unfortunately, he unexpectedly passed away. And his family knows how much this site meant to him. And as we move forward with this process, they're very interested in finding ways that we might be able to establish a memorial on site on behalf of Brian. So they are aware that we have a regular memorial policy and a process that this commission is part of. And because we envision that the bulk of these improvements may take some time to construct, we are exploring ways with the family for some maybe near-term memorial opportunities, whether it be a plaque someplace that just recognizes Brian, and that plaque could be integrated into other features as we move forward to implement phases of the project. So I just wanted to highlight that and let you know that's something that's likely to be coming before the commission, maybe at the next meeting or the one following that. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy, with that update. And Paul, thank you so much for your very hard work with this. So thank you very much. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Oh, Matt, Commissioner Hargrove.
Oh, I was just unmuting to say I'd like to move that we adopt, that we recommend to the City Council that they adopt alternative 1 as presented in this report. Is that the right motion we need?
So I'll second it.
Tracy?
Okay, so we have Commissioner Hargrove making the motion and seconded by, who was that?
Yeah.
I see both Commissioner Eckler and Commissioner Reed with their hands up. Was
Yeah.
Nate can have it.
Okay, second by Commissioner Eckler. Katie, please call the roll.
Thank you. Vice Chair Reed? What is your vote? I'm sorry. You're muted. Unmute.
Trying to be good. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Ahmad?
Yes.
And Commissioner Price? I'm sorry, Commissioner Jans?
Aye. Fantastic.
Thank you, Commissioner Price.
course, you didn't hear me. Aye.
Thank you. And Chair Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Dirksen. And with that, we will continue on to item number 4 in the regular agenda, workshop on updates to the Bright Park Master Plan. Erin Rivas, please take it away.
Hey, can you hear me? Here we go. All right, let's see from the beginning. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Erin Rivas, and I am here this evening to present you with a workshop on a proposed update to the Bright Park Master Plan. This workshop will include the background to the master plan, a community engagement feedback, opportunities and challenges that we have faced in advancing the master plan, the refinements we have proposed to advance implementation of the master plan, and a request for feedback from the Commission. I'd like to give you a little background on the master plan. Bright Park was originally developed between 1989 and 1991 and is owned by Washington Unified School District. The park is used and maintained by the city through a joint use facilities agreement with the school district established in 1989. It is one of the many school district sites that the city uses and maintains, but it is the most heavily used and programmed park in the city. The original master plan was developed in 2013 and involved significant community engagement. It incorporated multiple sites, including Bright Park, Alice Norman playfields, and the Holy Cross School playfields. The city has since worked to implement the master plan, pending funding availability. And I would like to give you a little bit more background on the master plan. In 2016, the phase 1 improvements were completed. That included the Kaboom playground equipment. In 2017, the phase 2 improvements were completed. That involved a shade structure installation, restroom, barbecue, covered picnic area, sport court, a parking lot, and street crossing improvements. In 2017, staff also applied for the State Parks Youth Soccer Program grant funding, but the grant funding was not awarded. In 2019, you guys may remember, staff attempted to apply for the Prop 68 grant funding, but the site was deemed ineligible. Unfortunately, the State Parks uses the Community Fact Finder tool, which bases eligibility for park sites on median income and the park poor status. Bright Park is so big, it didn't qualify by park poor. And then the tool uses a half-mile radius from the park site. And the tool is not exactly our friend. It picks that half-mile radius, unfortunately picks up gated communities, and then even residents over in Natomas, so it completely skews the income. We attempted to, argue with the state, and I guess that we didn't win. But anyway, in 2019, Holy Cross School closed, so the playfields are no longer available. In 2020, the Washington Unified School District is going through a facilities master plan update, and that's going to impact the Alice Norman site. And in 2025, the ADA settlement improvements must be completed. So staff did go after the Prop 68 grant funding. We weren't eligible, but we did get a lot of community feedback. We realized, we're reminded that the community needs more restrooms. The older community specifically stated a desire to use the park, but they were limited by urgent bathroom needs. Parents of small children indicated that when they attend soccer games and stuff, especially if they had children of different ages or younger children, that the more bathrooms, the better, and especially closer to where they're actually playing their games. Walking loops are really important. Safe, accessible, connected walking paths are wanted by the community. Bright Park residents need a dog park ASAP. Everybody wants a dog park. The community pool is still very much desired. And a significant number of people indicate a desire for some sort of water feature. And the 2013 master plan included the community pool. We need to consider phasing the improvements as funding becomes available. Bright Park is a big park. So breaking it down into smaller, doable chunks makes funding improvements less challenging. And we must explore partnerships to fund improvements. We need to look to nonprofits and private parties that might have an interest in investing in Bright Park. We have met many opportunities and challenges in advancing the master plan. Challenges such as the grant funding environment becoming much more competitive. So we're having to find alternate ways of funding the improvements. The current master plan limits the ability to construct the improvements into the smaller phases. Basically stuff such as shifting placement of the all-weather soccer field and some of the softball fields, it changes that. It actually reduces the impacts to programming. We also want to be respectful of the original master plan process. They had a robust community engagement effort, and so we want the community to feel like that they spoke and we listened. The opportunities, we have the opportunity to build off the original master plan to create additional opportunities for improved park programming and maintenance. This allows us to incorporate recent feedback from the community because times have changed. Also, it allows us to clarify the Washington Unified School District needs for the adjacent properties and the amenities. It establishes an easier way of phasing the improvements and efficiencies, finding efficiencies with the concurrent implementation of the park improvements and the ADA improvements. And some of the proposed refinements to advance the implementation would consider that the ADA improvements required. We have 36 identified, and some of those have subparts. The bathrooms alone have like 50. So they're required by 2025, so those need to be addressed. These proposed refinements would consider maintenance needs. With this new all-weather soccer field, we're gonna need a storage shed. We need to be able to store some of the equipment used for striping at some of the play fields based on the time of the year and the demand. They would reduce impacts to current programming, like the soccer field and the softball field. Just that one shift, moving the soccer field up and the softball field down, it is a real game changer into making these improvements in phases that minimize or reduce impacts to programming. It allows us to explore phasing that aligns with similar grant programs, such as a soccer field grant. It would leverage existing infrastructure as much as possible. It would incorporate recent community feedback, the walking loops, the additional restroom, the continued desire for a dog park, and a water feature, and even things like pickleball courts, which didn't even exist back then. They also would coordinate with the Washington Unified School District Facilities Master Plan. We need to align our efforts with Washington Unified School District so that we are not duplicating efforts or investing in properties that we may not have access to. So here are the existing conditions. You can see here, there is the completed improvements, which didn't exist in the initial master plan. And then we've grouped it with the orange dots, some of the ADA improvements that are required. The restroom over here, there's a ton of them. There's a lot of them are grouped just right there in the restroom alone. Yeah, you can see that we had a draft ADA transition plan completed by SES Consultants in 2010. The restroom alone had 50 barriers. There are 36 total, but the bathrooms were like 25 and 26, or like E through Z, kind of a nightmare. It's a significant number. Many of the issues are that some of the playground or park amenities lack an accessible route. A significant number of the barriers involve benches or bleachers that either lack an accessible space or a companion space or both. If we only address the ADA improvements, we'll be taking away quite a bit from the park. So staff feels that the community needs to see improvements to Bright Park, and that it's vital that phase 3 not only address the accessibility barriers, but bring around another round of improvements to the park. So here are the refinement highlights. We focus mainly on the main Bright campus for the near-term improvements. There are some minor shifts with the site plan to reflect the improvements made to date, which would be down, you can't see it, but right down here. And then the shift with the adult softball complex and then the soccer field. The switches will allow for easier phasing of improvements. They will reduce programming impacts and would allow for secured access for maintenance and programming. They would also add a small storage shed right here, which would provide storage and support operations and maintenance. And then some additional angle parking along Riverbank here. which will allow parking for tournaments and other activities, soccer games. Also, we're maintaining the restroom over here on Todd Hunter to support a variety of park uses and would solve a huge number of accessibility issues that were named in the citywide litigation. It will maximize the lawn space and allow for flexibility for programming of all ages based on time of year, demand. It also incorporates, I think you can see over here, there's pickleball. I think it's over here, which is a growing trend. It wasn't even on our radar back in 2013. And then it eliminates some redundant street crossing down on Cary. I think there's a side-by-side here. So you can kind of see they're very, very similar. Just some minor changes. You can say shift here, you know, with the soccer field and the adult softball right here. But it really is an efficient way of utilizing this park space. And so here's how the phases are broken down here. So phase 3, you'll see, is up here with the all-weather soccer field, the dog park, the parking. We have the restroom. I think we have one soccer field as the accessible routes over here. There's some minor accessibility issues right along the east section. Phase 4, softball complex. 5 is mostly the soccer fields and walking loops. And then 6, you can see down here in green. And then 7 finally will be the community pool. So we have the first of this phase of improvements, the phase 3, will minimize the impacts on programming. It'll address all the ADA requirements by 2025 as proposed, would provide for a new all-weather lit soccer field, a dog park, accessible parking along Riverbank up here, walking paths, and would replace the existing restroom along Todd Hunter. And here's the cost estimates. You can see they're much smaller chunks that are, you know, far easier to fund using grant funding. So phase 3 is 5.8. The smaller one, I guess, is phase 6. And phase 7 is for the community pool. And just note that this phase will create a significant addition in terms of O&M. Having that pool is going to be quite expensive, and it'll be, you know, long term. So next steps, we're seeking your feedback tonight. We plan on going online and getting feedback from the community through our website in September and October. We'd like to host hopefully an on-site community engagement effort. It might have to be virtual, depends on you know, on the environment at the time. And then we'd like to take it to City Council in a workshop in November, December 2020, and then move forward hopefully on phase 3 design contract in early 2021. And just as a reminder, this is just a planning effort, but with these minor refinements and project phasing, breaking the park into smaller doable chunks that address all of the ADA improvements required for the citywide litigation, minimize impacts to park programming, and better align with potential grant funding programs, Bright Park will be in a significantly better position towards obtaining funding. And that concludes my workshop. Do I have any questions?
Commissioner Eckler?
Yeah, just a couple things here, and I'll probably walk it backwards just kind of for where you wrapped on up. So great presentation, Aaron. You know, certainly love what you're doing on the phase 3 timeline. So I know it went through and it said, you know, it's kind of speaking in, you know, say design, you know, and kind of moving ahead in springtime. What is the availability of that funding for that $5.8 million and the viability of getting that funding lined up in that time frame?
Tracy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we, you know, in the recently updated Parks Recreation Open Space Master Plan, we had as a priority item continuing the implementation of the Bright Park Master Plan. That came up a lot, and we know we have these ADA requirements that have to be met on site. So we used our Memorial Park experience to kind of gauge the amount of time it took to do that and the value in trying to find some recreation amenities that can be built into the ADA improvement project. We think it would be a missed opportunity if we only looked at the ADA improvements in isolation. So what's being presented to you is kind of an initial proposal on what a phase 3 could look like. And we did things that made sense in order to accomplish the ADA objectives. And quite frankly, there are some known funding opportunities related to all-weather soccer fields. It's kind of what started the discussion. When we looked at the original master plan, there was no way we could move forward with an all-weather soccer field without taking out the softball fields. Right. And take those softball fields out of commission until we found funding to move them per the original master plan. And so that's what really got us thinking, you know, we might need to tweak some things a bit in order to take advantage of these sort of one-off opportunities like the soccer fields program. So we know there's some programs out there. We have a little bit of money, but we really need to start planning now because like we did for Memorial Park, it took years of setting aside funding to help accomplish those ADA improvements. And we're gonna need to think about the same thing for this next phase of improvements, whatever they wind up being. You know, we're proposing phase 3 as it is. We think we can get there, but we don't have the funding sources completely figured out yet. We are exploring partnership opportunities. Before we got too serious about that, we needed updated cost estimates. The cost estimates that were done, you know, back with the original master plan were so dated that we really needed to look at updated estimates. So and make sure we have a plan that's still supported by the community. So when we're going out there to create those partnerships and bring in funding to leverage resources, it's for a project we know the community supports. So we don't have all the funding lined up now. This is really the first step at identifying what the goal is and having enough time to secure the funding and the time frame needed.
Okay. My second question, and it's probably a larger question just in relation to what's happening, and it is certainly an opportunity, but with the WUSD site facility master plan. So there's a great degree of fluidity as consolidation is happening, kind of, you know, throughout the city, right? And multiple sites now. What is that? Is that sending, you know, things and creating a lot more complexity to it? Is it really an opportunity, you know, per se as those are being set on up? But because obviously the more we partner with the district, certainly creates more space, but as a result of it, creates more space and more things that we need to fund to go through and make viable. So I'm curious at the level of impact on, you know, those things. So
I may not have the answer. Tracy may have the answer once again, but I know definitely we're affected by the Washington Unified School District with their facilities master plan. We have to, you know, be very mindful of their decisions, and we still are waiting to hear back what their plan is with the you know, the properties. Right, Tracy?
Yeah, well, we partner with them on a lot of different properties. So as you're probably aware, over the last several years, things have been happening on the Alice Norman campus that have, you know, changed some of the space available to implement the original Bright Park master plan. And so we knew we had to kind of shrink that footprint. We also know that the community really wants to have another pool on the north part of town, and pools, aquatic facilities are very expensive to operate. And so we don't have the ability in the 10-year Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan CIP project to tackle the pool. I mean, we could get funding to construct it, but the funding to maintain it and operate it is the bigger issue, a challenge for us. And so we're probably looking at that piece being the last phase, much farther into the future. And the Alice Norman campus and the Bright Elementary campus, it could change even more. So we do the best we can with the information we have right now. And the updated plan reflects how the school district anticipates using that site right now for their master plan. We're coordinating with them on the Bright Park proper site right now. That's a site that is doesn't seem to be impacted by their facilities master plan too much. It's considered one of those surplus properties. But there are other sites, including those that we worked with the district on applying for Prop 68 grant funding that could be impacted. But of course, we would vet all of that before we move forward with any major improvements. We want to make sure that we had the site and the partnership set up to support that level of investment so that we could have those improvements around for a really long time.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I just more of a question of overall sprawl and limited resources. I want to see you guys continue to put out the quality that you guys are doing. So I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Commissioner Hargrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really like the changes here. I do want to say I may have caused some confusion. It does look like there was some changes to the map and the plan. I have both versions out there, so I apologize if that happens. This is a special park. This is a special spot in the city. This is the play fields, was the football fields for the high school, Washington High School, that was built in the north part of town in the early 60s. It was where I played Pop Warner football in the late 70s. Got my bell rung for the first time at this park. And I love seeing the partnership between the city and, for years it was an adult softball league kind of only that used this park. And now when you go by there, there's so many different activities happening, baseball fields, soccer fields, people just being there with their families, walking around the track. It's great to see. We ride our bikes through there all the time, just for no other reason than to ride across the grass in the field because we love to be in there. So love this whole plan, but do have a couple questions. First is the dog park in the plan, and I don't know if it's a new plan or the old plan. It shows up in one area of the plan, but it doesn't show up under the color coordinated phases. And if that got fixed between the old one and the new one, that's good. But there was a question about that. Just want to make sure we're clear. I love the where that dog park is going to be located, and I love co-locating a dog park with other activities. So you can drop your kid off at soccer and then not hover over them while you go hang out with your dogs at the dog park. I think it's a great idea. But in that area, the quarter-mile track is completely gone, correct? There will be no quarter-mile track in Broderick anymore.
No, but we're incorporating the walking loops to provide that amenity. I know people want walking loops, but the track itself had a large number of accessibility issues. It was named quite a bit in the yes.
Okay, but I just wanted to make sure we were reading that right. I do like that. It's hard to tell what a walking jogging path is like on paper, but for people that do want to go out and run around a track, sometimes trying to do that on a walking path is a little bit more difficult. So just wanted to be clear on that. And I know that this isn't a detailed plan yet, but this is a huge park. It would be nice to have some more just sitting areas, some benches along the walking path. I know that putting benches out causes concerns with loitering and things like that. But anywhere where we can find trees or shade or create some shade and have areas where people can sit down, I think that would be really good because it's just a very, very large park. You answered the question on the timeline for the work. That's great. Some of the baseball facilities I know have been named for folks in the area. Some of the fields, I think there's 3 named fields at Alice Norman. and just want to, I know you guys are always thinking about that, but it would be nice to put this out to the community for some naming opportunities of some of these fields or some other things, and not naming opportunities to raise money, but to honor some folks, that have worked very hard. There's a lot of folks I know in the Broderick and Bright area, Elkhorn Village, if you're old enough, that really put a lot of hard work into some of the play fields and stuff in the north area. And it'd be really nice to maybe put together a little stakeholder group, reach out to some of the sports groups that are there, or maybe the BB Can or something like that, and just get some names in the hat and think about those. I think, again, this is a cultural resource, and just naming stuff is an easy way to honor that. I know pools are a total pain. I know they're expensive, and I think it's really unfair that the Parks Department always has to be begging, borrowing, pleading for money to provide amenities for the community. It's unfair, but I think that you guys really need to push forward. Having a pool amenity in the Broderick Bright area is absolutely essential. This is a fight that goes back to the 60s. And the fact that we only have one public pool in town right now, and it's all the way on the south end of town, I think is something that we need to have rectified as soon as possible. So please do your best. But I hear what you're saying about funding for that. And I know funding the current pool is difficult, but I think that that's a very, very important thing. The community garden is moved in the plan. Is it completely gone, or is it moved somewhere else?
Tracy?
Yeah, well, I mean, based on the original master plan, that garden wasn't there. So we haven't addressed whether it moves. We just know that that area, that space would need to be used for a future pool site.
Yeah.
So, I have been approached by some people when they saw the plan about what's happening with that. And my response is, nothing now, and maybe nothing for a while, because this is a longer term phase unless there's some unique funding opportunity that that we are able to take advantage of. But so things could change a few years down the road with that, but we have not proposed relocating it at this point.
Okay, well, I think just having it be known that it's there will put some minds at rest. And I know we're rapidly running out of room to do things that we need to do. I don't know, is that garden part of the urban garden plots, or is it just a true community garden that neighbors come and garden?
I don't know. I think the school district was working to better define what was happening there. So I could certainly follow up on that and get more information.
It's okay. I could follow up on that too. And then finally, I played tennis for about 6 months of my life. It wasn't my thing. Apparently there's a net in the middle that is always there and it stops the ball. But there's a lot of folks that are missing our tennis courts. We used to have free and open tennis courts at Old River City and Washington High. I know there's tennis courts at the New River City, but my understanding is they're not free and open like they used to be. And I know pickleball is a really cool new thing that people are playing, but it's not tennis. There's no tennis courts in this plan. There's no tennis courts in the city of West Sac. Is tennis just something we're moving past, or is there any thought of trying to do some sort of tennis courts in town?
You want me to take that one, Aaron? Okay. We've actually heard through all of the different Prop 68 grant efforts how important tennis and pickleball are. And so I think there is room for tennis. There is a tennis court right now near Club West, but that location is really being used by the school. So I know we have Christine on the call. Christine's from Quadriga, who worked on the original master plan. And just correct me if I'm wrong, Christine, but where we have the pickleball courts identified, we also have sports courts. I think there's some flexibility there. We also propose some courts at the West Acre site. And I'm going to speak to this later on, but we hope to resubmit the West Acre Park expansion and renovation application again. And so I think there are some amenities like tennis courts. You don't necessarily need them at both sites, but it would be great to land them at least one. And so
Yes.
that might be one of those amenities that, based on feedback received from this process, there's just placeholder courts.
Okay.
Christine, can you add to that at all? In terms of the dimensions of the different courts?
Yes, so tennis courts obviously are significantly larger than the pickleball court. So I think if we were to include them in this master plan, we would need some more space. I think that's why we were looking at the existing courts, maybe refurbishing them, because it's also more cost effective to build multiple courts and not just build one. So where we're showing the pickleball courts right now, we would likely only be able to fit one tennis court. So it may not be a cost benefit for this site. It may be better to place them elsewhere where you could have multiples, and that draws more people in general because they like to play in groups. So
I hear you. I understand that you don't want to put in just one tennis court, and I'm actually not advocating that we change the plan to include them here. Just wanted to hear what thoughts there were in terms of bringing back some tennis courts in town. And it sounds like the West Acre site is something that is actively being thought about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hargrove, I wanted to thank you for mentioning a couple of those items. We did have some members of the community reach out and email us with at least two of those topics. One of them was setting up, or proposing or considering additional seating to accommodate some of our, active aging, seniors, in the community, and also people with disabilities, so they have places to rest. And then also we had someone from a local soccer club who was interested in, about naming, park naming. So thank you for mentioning those.
Commissioner Johns?
Thanks. Great presentation, Erin. Thanks for all the hard work that everyone's putting in the master plan. I just wanted to make a comment on behalf of the youth in the community who's aged 12 to 14 or 15 or so. I know with my experience in Little League, and I hate to be the person that's always bringing this up, but I just have that in my lane because of my focus right now. But my understanding is there's a field currently in Bright Park that's being used for what's called the 50-70 group, which is a group of junior baseball players that are aged out of Little League, but not quite in high school. It's a small portion of the members of the Little League, but it is part of that. We did have a team this year that was going to be playing at the Bridgeway Island field, but I noticed, which is fantastic, but that is a full adult field, which is usable. But the 50-70 is typically the distance of the mound to the home plate, and then 70 feet between the bases instead of 90. It's a little bit smaller. It's in between. It's like a medium-sized field. There was a field in Bright Park that was being used for 50-70, which I believe is now in the master plan, one of the adult softball fields. It's the one in the corner that's kind of facing away. So I saw on the documents that were sent over that it looks like there's an adult baseball field that would be on the farthest outfield of one of the current Alice Norman baseball fields, in that far corner closer to the existing softball field. This is the Alice Norman Park. So I guess my question relates to the plan for a juniors field. There was some talk in the past of reallocating the Bridgeway Island, or the Bridgeway Lakes, the Bridgeway Lakes Community Park field to be more of a soccer field, to remove the fences and make that more of a universal field. Should something like that happen, and then this Bright Master Plan move forward, it seems as though that age group from 12 to 14 would essentially be eliminated. They wouldn't really have a place to play until that adult baseball field was built at Alice Norman. So I guess I have kind of a question of whether the youth at that age group, which is kind of a critical age, kind of coming into junior high before you're into high school, I would hate to see, their opportunity to continue a sport kind of be eliminated. So I just wanted to, I guess, ask if I'm seeing the map clearly, and if there is a plan to either continue the use of the Bridgeway Lake field, and how the future for that age group, that juniors division, that 50-70 field, where that kind of fits into this master plan.
Would Paul or Tracy be able to speak to that? I'm not sure or clear as to the programming.
I'm sure, Paul, do you want to?
Yeah, in regards to Bridgeway Lakes, back several years back, we've had that incident where foul balls were hitting the homes behind the backstop. And at some point, we eliminated adult use on that because of the situation. So we really used it basically for the Little League Junior program. I believe that is a 90-foot, it's a 60 and 90, right? An adult field there. I think you've used it in the past. It's not really made for 50-70 because you would have to skin more of the grass off for the infield. I think looking at Bright Park, all three of those softball fields / youth fields, adult fields, whatever you want to call them, I believe all the infields are dirt and then only grass in the outfield. That will allow us to have several different age groups in that, from 50 foot, 60 foot, 70 foot, 80 foot to 90 feet. I believe they're all set up at 300-foot fences. So you can use them for multiple age groups. For softball, adult softball, not necessarily adult baseball, it's 300 feet, but you can use it for youth organizations. I think currently right now we have that field 5, which the one that you were talking about at Bright Park. I think that, now correct me if I'm wrong on that, is that a 50-70 there? Or is it a 60-90?
I believe it's a 50-70, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
Yeah, either am I. But I do know that you have used that in the past, and the old Little League, Washington Little League at the time, had used that in the past for their 12 or for the 13-year-old group, I believe 13, 14-year-old group. So honestly, I really don't know the outfield depth or length of it now running into the playground area. So I'm not quite sure if that can still be a 50-70 or 12 or 13, 14-year-old age group. So, but I think overall, those fields, the 3 fields that are presented there, are able to use all different types of age groups.
Well, I guess, I would be a little bit concerned of that age group because they're young men and women at that point, with no infield grass, the baseball kind of hopping a little bit hot on dirt. I think we're probably would be okay as long as we don't eliminate the Bridgeway Island. If we can maybe agree or come up with a plan, Bridgeway Lake, in that we keep to kind of what was planned this last season, where kids in that age group, 13, 14, it's not an adult league playing field, but maybe it becomes essentially a juniors playing field. As long as that field doesn't get eliminated as part of this plan, then I think there's at least somewhere for them to play. It may not be ideal, or it could be adjusted in the future. It's caught my attention because I didn't want to see that get eliminated and then also the Bright Park changes occur and then there's nowhere for them to play. That was my concern. So I appreciate you hearing me out. I would appreciate if we keep that at least in the conversation, that Bridgeway Lakes kind of remains available to 13, 14-year-old youth.
Okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Ahmad?
Thank you. I have a question, Aaron, about the all-weather soccer field. And I'm sorry if I didn't pay attention. You may have had this detail in there, but I'm assuming it includes lighting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the sheds you mentioned that'll be there. Currently, I know that the West Sac Soccer Club, I don't know if they rent or if they use the sheds that are currently there over there off of, I believe it's off of Cary. Would it be the same idea that the soccer clubs would be able to use the sheds, or would it be for city purposes only?
I think the plan was to have for city purposes, right, Tracy? For maintenance equipment?
When you have an all-weather soccer field, we don't have one in the city yet, but we've gone to visit other sports complexes that have them. They require different kind of maintenance, higher levels of maintenance, and you need to have replacement product and specific machines, and so we really don't have a maintenance building at Bright Park for any of the maintenance equipment right now. So this building would not only help provide space for the maintenance needed for that all-weather soccer field, but it would probably also house some other general park maintenance equipment. Paul, I mean, you might know, I don't think that we have any of the athletic clubs using any of the containers on the Bright Park site for their use, right?
Strictly city, those containers.
Okay. And I was wondering if that would be, I know there's like everyone has mentioned, there's like only so much space, but could there be something incorporated where the soccer clubs could then like rent something from the city that's on property that's for balls and goals and stuff like that? Could that concept, is that possible?
I don't see why not, Tracy.
We do have that on some other sites. We have leagues that have storage space. So that's something we can definitely look into for sure.
And then my last question kind of piggybacks off what Matt has mentioned regarding the tennis courts. And I know I've approached you and Paul, Tracy and Paul about like futsal courts and such. I was wondering, and again, this isn't really on topic, but with Westacre, would the tennis court possibly be a mixed-use court where it could be tennis and then futsal as well?
I think that was the plan, correct? I'm gonna play court.
Yeah, great. I'm someone who utilizes Bright a lot. I've coached 2 different soccer teams, and my kids are there all the time. It's exciting to see all the different changes, and I really love that you've consolidated the soccer fields. Like you said, instead of having them interspersed throughout the park, makes it a lot easier on game day to then just navigate with multiple children or whatever. So I appreciate the planning into it, and excited about how it will roll out and eventually come to be. So thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to thank Erin Rivas for your great presentation.
Thank you. I also want to just mention that if there are any additional comments or concerns from anyone in the community, please go ahead and email them to Katie at Dyke at her email. It's listed on the agenda, but it's Catherine D at cityofwestsacramento.org. And then she can go ahead and forward it to the appropriate staff to give them a response.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to continue with the agenda now. We're going to go to the General Administration Function Part 2, item number 5A, Director's Report.
Thank you, Chair Sandoval. I know we haven't met in a while, but since City Hall closed back in March, our department has been working very hard to keep projects moving, preparing new grant applications. We've switched to offering virtual programming, and our park maintenance staff has done a phenomenal job maintaining our parks and our trails, which are now being heavily used. So I do have a little bit of a longer update tonight. I know you receive the weekly newsletter that has some information about what we're doing, but I do want to just bring you up to date on some things that have happened since we've last met. First, we just wrapped up July as Parks and Recreation Month. West Sacramento Parks and Rec celebrated with the theme, We Are Parks and Recreation. We had some great staff working on providing posts to social media, the city's website, And all month long, we work to highlight all of the passionate and essential work of our parks and recreation professionals who provide services that are vital to a healthy city. This year, through a California Park and Recreation Society grant, we are able to offer, again, the Agents of Discovery free mobile exploration game in our parks and trails all throughout the community. We feature different sites each week. And over the month of July, 250 plus families participated in the program. And I think we ranked 3rd in the region for the number of participants. As mentioned earlier in this meeting in July, Memorial Park improvements were officially completed and the park reopened. A portion of the park had remained open, but the balance of the site reopened. And while we weren't able to have a traditional ribbon cutting ceremony as originally planned, we did put together a very cool video of the park improvements, and we hope to be able to host a special celebration in the future. If you've been by Riverwalk Park recently, you will have noticed that the dock project is really coming along. The Etinesh-Zaliki Public Boat Dock project is made great progress. The debris deflector is now being installed over the next 2 weeks in the river. The floating dock has been fabricated and will be installed once the berthing dock is in place. Over the next few weeks, the electrical work will be completed, as well as security gate and guardrail. And then the art installation, which is the river crossing art installation, which spells out Etinesh-Zaliki in the nautical alphabet, is scheduled for the week of September 17th. Aaron and some other city staff are currently working on our docks operation and maintenance policy to address permitting and fees. So that will be coming to council fairly shortly. The Heritage Oaks Park ropes course. The ropes course had opened and then it closed, and then now it's back open for business. It's doing very well. They're offering some great outdoor recreation options for families, people of all ages, where they're able to implement very strict protocols to provide a safe and fun environment for people. Right now, they're still working on some of the other site improvements, but the play area is almost completely done. We're just waiting now for the parking lot, the trash enclosure and concession building, lighting, and landscaping to be completed. We are also preparing the site for a future electric vehicle charging station as part of a citywide grant-funded program to install charging stations throughout the community in locations that are convenient so people can charge while they're also doing other things. The Southport Levee Trailhead project is also moving forward. As you may recall, we received grant funding from the Habitat Conservation Fund program to not only purchase a remnant parcel that's located on Linden Road, where it terminates into the levee, but we also received grant funding and were able to allocate Measure E funding to construct the trailhead improvements. We recently issued an RFP for design and permitting services, and we'll be bringing a contract to council shortly for consideration of an award so that we can move forward with the formal design process of that trailhead. And this commission meeting will serve as a primary forum for sharing information and also soliciting input from you and from the community on the design elements. In mid-March, we closed most of our facilities. The Recreation Center and Community Center both closed. The Community Center reopened so that it could allow Learning Ladder to open and provide childcare services. And the Recreation Center has remained closed, but I'm happy to announce that next week, it will be reopening for outdoor use for lap swim and tennis and pickleball initially. And we'll just continue to monitor those activities while also providing virtual group exercise and fitness challenge classes while the indoor space remains closed. We received notification that the 4th round of the Prop 68 statewide park and community revitalization program is now available. So this is the grant program where we had that huge community engagement effort. We submitted applications for 3 sites: the public plaza in the Bridge District, the expansion and renovation of Westacre Park, and also a new neighborhood park on the Fallbrook campus playfields, which was the original Westmore Oaks, soon to be Westmore Oaks again. We were unfortunately not able to receive any grant awards for those projects with the last round, but now that the fourth round is available, it has $395 million of grant funding for projects. Applications are due December 14th, and we anticipate resubmitting the applications that we originally submitted, and also continue to explore any other opportunities that might be good candidates for the program. Also funded with Prop 68 funding is a program that the Delta Conservancy has right now. And I apologize, I can't remember the complete name of that grant program. It's very long, but we did submit concept proposals for paving the Southport Levee Trail, or looking at paving and enhancing the Clarksburg Branch Line Trail, and also for continued implementation of the Bees Lakes Habitat Restoration Plan. And so for Bees Lakes, based on what you heard tonight, we would advance the designs even further, and we would, with grant funding, and complete all the permitting work, and maybe even some improvements on site. So we're exploring those, and we'll certainly bring more information back to you as we pull together that information. That is a program that is accepting applications on a rolling basis. So there is not a hard and fast deadline, but we are working to get those put together as quickly as possible because funding is available on a first come, first serve basis.
And Tracy, the name of the program is the Community and Economic Enhancement Grant Program.
Thank you. And that concludes my update.
Oh, that was a great, robust update. Thank you so much. That's what happens when it takes a while for us to get back in a roll here. Any questions for Tracy? Commissioner Hargrove, then Commissioner Eckler.
Tracy, what's the timeline on the new Prop 68 funding round?
December 14th is the deadline.
Ugh.
Now, I'd have to check with Aaron on the performance period for that. You know, how long we have if we were receive grant funding to actually make improvements and complete the project. I don't have that information in front of me right now, but the good news is with all of the 3 applications we've submitted, we don't have to conduct new community engagement. We can use all of the community engagement that from the last effort for this process. But if we want to consider a new project, we have a lot to do, and we still have to understand what community engagement means right now, because the environment's a little different.
Well, I mean, my question was geared towards hoping that the deadline was going to be August 5th, because I know we're ready to go on this stuff and don't want to wait any longer. And I'm not suggesting that you need to find new sites. I think all the work you did the last time around was comprehensive. It was amazing, and they were the right sites for this type of thing. So I was just hoping it was going to be a much quicker turnaround than the last one seemed like it took forever. Thank you.
Commissioner Eckler?
Yes, just one last thing, and I don't know if you went over it or not, but what's going on with the real estate purchase over at the Fallbrook site?
We purchased a piece of property at Fernwood and Meadow.
That's the one I'm talking about. Sorry.
Yes,
Fernwood.
we closed. We are the proud owners of that site, and our park maintenance staff have been working hard to maintain the site and learn from all of the neighbors, the history of the site, how the site's been maintained, and actually we've gotten some great feedback from the neighbors who've been engaging socially distant with our park maintenance crews, and they're really grateful that our park maintenance folks are out there and are doing a great job.
That's excellent to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions for Tracy? Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5B, future item request within the scope of this commission. Commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner Reed.
First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge that I know the staff is working under incredible conditions and facing innumerable challenges in carrying on your work. So I applaud and congratulate you for hanging in there and making progress on so many things that might otherwise go fallow while we're waiting what appears to be a very long time going forward to address the COVID pandemic. So thank you so much for all your good work. I don't intend to put anything on your plate insofar as future requests, other than I would note that the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change, which was a cooperative program between the City of West Sacramento and the City of Sacramento, has adopted their final report with recommendations. I was pleased to sit on one of the technical advisory committees on community and health in that project, which lasted 18 months and was a really terrific project and model for engagement. And now that the recommendations have been adopted, I'm going to be interested in how those integrate not only through a future climate action plan, but also our efforts around livable communities. So when staff is ready and able, and I also know that many of you have been diverted to address COVID-related issues and challenges. When you're ready, I would be very interested in hearing how the Mayor's Commission report is going to be integrated into future work of the Commission. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Seeing none, before we adjourn, I'd like to thank the city staff and the commission clerk, Katie Dyke, for helping us conduct this virtual meeting that's new for everybody. And before we conclude, would anybody like to entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Reed moves. A second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Eckler seconds. Clerk Commissioner, please call the roll.
Thank you. Commissioner Ahmad?
Aye.
Commissioner Hargrove? Did you disappear, Commissioner Hargrove?
Right there.
Oh, there you
Aye.
go. Thank you. And Commissioner Jans?
Aye.
Commissioner Price?
Aye, doesn't work for me. Aye.
You. And Chair Sandoval?
Aye.
We need
So with
more than
that-
one syllable to do that.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.